Like you're
I'm
trying
not
to
censoring
censor
anyone. I haven't censored anyone
on the streets
today.
of Minneapolis. It's time to remove these out-of-control ICE agents who have not had law enforcement training, but yet they're trying to apply the laws of this state to the citizens of that jurisdiction. They are a severe threat to public safety wherever they go. And we need to be holding hearings. Instead of this committee gave ICE $60 billion to detain and like what that agent was doing yesterday, trying to subdue this peaceful protester, this lady. You gave them $60 billion to do that, and you gave another $800.
The debate over crime, protest, and immigration enforcement exploded inside the House Judiciary Committee as Congressman Hank Johnson of Georgia delivered a fiery denunciation of the Keeping Violent Offenders Off Our Streets Act. What unfolded was not just a policy disagreement, but a broader argument about civil rights, history, and the limits of government power. If you want reporting that explains what this bill actually does and why it has become so controversial, make sure to subscribe.
Violent Offenders Off Our Streets Act. Keeping Violent Offenders Off Our Streets Act should be the name of a bill to remove ICE officers from our streets. But to digress and go back to this bill, it would define bail bonds as an insurance product, and it's intended to target nonprofit bail funds that raise money to pay the cash bonds of indigent detainees. Well, that's exactly what civil rights marchers needed back in the 50s and 60s when they were being arrested for exercising their right to peacefully protest against this government policy of apartheid for black people in this country. People were arrested, and you had people like Harry Belafonte and Lena Horne and Sammy Davis Jr., and you had labor unions, and you had the NAACP, you had pastors, you had rabbis, and other good-thinking people who put together funds to bond these protesters, these civil rights protesters out of jail. This legislation would create liability to these fundraising networks that would support peaceful protesters. And have no doubt about it, ladies and gentlemen, the right to peacefully protest in America is under attack. That is what Ms. Renee Good, was doing yesterday, peacefully protesting. She didn't do anything wrong. She had not committed a felony. If she committed a misdemeanor, it would have been a minor traffic violation of impeding traffic. But as you look at the video, you can see her motioning traffic around her before she was summarily executed. Whether or not you want to call it manslaughter, whether or not you want to call it murder, it's definitely a homicide. And in my opinion, it's when prosecutors get someone who shoots into someone's car who is not an agent of the federal government, they will charge that person with the highest offense, which would be murder. And they'll let the jury decide whether or not it's something less. But it was something, make no doubt about it. When an agent, he wasn't a law enforcement officer, it was just a ICE agent, could have been a goon, the way that they approached that vehicle and scared that woman, told her to get the fuck out the car.
Order.
Yeah, that's what was said. Now,
Yeah, it's the second time the committee
but that is
has
what
had to
the
listen
agent,
to profanity.
That is what that
Ridiculous.
agent told that woman. And that woman.
It's the House of Representatives.
Committee will be in order.
United States House.
That woman was fearful
Stop
for
with
her life.
profanity.
Yeah.
That woman
Ridiculous.
I would remind the members that there's an appropriate language to be used in committee. The gentleman from Georgia controls the time.
Well, I would like to have my 45 seconds.
I've been very flexible on the time, and you will get an extra 20 seconds if you really need it, and we need to listen to it. You'll get it.
Yeah. Well, you're going to censor me now, like you're
I'm
trying
not
to
censoring
censor
anyone. I haven't censored anyone
on the
today.
Streets of Minneapolis. It's time to remove these out-of-control ICE agents who have not had law enforcement training, but yet they're trying to apply the laws of this state to the citizens of that jurisdiction, they are a severe threat to public safety wherever they go. And we need to be holding hearings. Instead of this committee gave ICE $60 billion to detain and like what that agent was doing yesterday, trying to subdue this peaceful protester, this lady. You gave them $60 billion to do that, and you gave another $858 million for bonuses for these ICE agents that you recruit from among the 1,600 plus dangerous people that you have pardoned on January 6th. These criminals that were released back into our communities are now probably serving as goons in ICE, and they've been unleashed on our people. And then this legislation would prevent people who are protesting their unlawful activities. You prevent them from raising money to get these people out of jail on bond. I think it's outrageous that this committee would sit here on this particular day and consider this kind of legislation, which does nothing but hurts the First Amendment rights of people under the guise of getting at indigent detainees who are detained by ICE. Shame on this committee, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I would just remind the committee that ICE agents have been doxxed, tracked, harassed, been interfered with when they're trying to do their job, been shot at in Dallas, all in these sanctuary jurisdictions all over the country. We even had a situation because in sanctuary jurisdictions, they won't comply with detainers that ICE has sent to that jurisdiction. We had ICE agents walking in the front door as the judge was letting the bad guy walk out the back door. So we all mourned the loss of this individual yesterday, but
Johnson began by challenging the very name of the legislation. He argued that if Congress were serious about keeping communities safe, the focus should be on removing what he described as out-of-control federal immigration officers from local streets. That framing set the tone for a speech rooted in history and deeply emotional appeals. At the heart of Johnson's criticism is how the bill treats bail. The legislation would classify bail bonds as an insurance product and subject nonprofit bail funds to new regulations and liabilities. Supporters say this would improve transparency and prevent abuse. Johnson, however, sees it as a direct threat to organizations that help indigent detainees who cannot afford cash bail. To explain why this matters, Johnson drew a direct line to the civil rights movement. He reminded the committee that in the 1950s and 1960s, peaceful protesters were routinely arrested for challenging segregation. Bail funds, supported by civil rights leaders, labor unions, religious organizations, and prominent entertainers, were essential in getting those protesters out of jail so the movement could continue. In Johnson's view, the same principle applies today. He warned that imposing liability on nonprofit bail funds would chill lawful protest and undermine First Amendment rights. According to Johnson, the right to peacefully protest in America is under attack, and legislation like this only accelerates that erosion. If you care about how laws passed today could shape protest rights tomorrow, don't forget to subscribe. Johnson then turned to the killing of Renee Good, a case that has loomed large over multiple Judiciary Committee debates. He described Good as a peaceful protester who posed no serious threat and had not committed a felony. At most, Johnson said, she may have committed a minor traffic infraction. He sharply criticized the conduct of the ICE agent involved, arguing that immigration agents are not traditional law enforcement officers trained to handle civilian policing. Johnson suggested that aggressive tactics and profanity escalated the situation and frightened Good, with deadly consequences. The exchange grew tense as Johnson accused the committee of trying to silence him while failing to confront what he sees as systemic abuse. He called for the removal of ICE agents from local policing roles and demanded hearings focused on their training, conduct, and oversight. If you want continued coverage that breaks down these confrontations without shouting past the facts, be sure to subscribe. Johnson also raised concerns about funding. He pointed to tens of billions of dollars appropriated to ICE for detention and enforcement, and hundreds of millions allocated for recruitment and bonuses. He argued that this expansion has occurred alongside policies that, in his view, place inadequately trained agents in volatile situations involving civilians and protesters. According to Johnson, the bill before the committee would make matters worse by criminalizing or discouraging efforts to help protesters post bail. He framed this as an attack on churches, nonprofits, and community groups that step in to help poor defendants avoid prolonged detention that can cost them jobs, housing, and stability. Johnson closed by condemning the timing of the legislation, saying it does nothing to address public safety and instead undermines constitutional freedoms. Republican members responded by emphasizing the dangers faced by ICE agents, citing incidents of harassment, doxing, and violence against officers. They argued that sanctuary policies and obstruction of federal law enforcement put both officers and the public at risk. The clash encapsulated a broader national debate. One side sees the bill as a necessary step to regulate bail practices and support law enforcement. The other views it as a historical regression that threatens civil liberties under the banner of public safety. As this legislation moves forward, the questions raised by Hank Johnson will continue to resonate. How far should Congress go in regulating bail funds? Who decides when enforcement crosses the line? And how does a nation committed to free speech balance protest, policing, and public order? For more reporting that puts today's political battles into historical and human context, make sure you're subscribed.